I felt her fingers tighten on my arms before I heard her daughters rip the first dress. That's the moment my world tilted. Not when the fabric tore. Not when they laughed. Not when my stepmom, Diane, whispered into my ear like she was telling me a joke meant only for us. You dress like trash anyway, Amanda. No, the shift happened when I stayed silent. And realized they had no idea who I had become. Or what I now owned. Tonight, they think they're about to break me. But what they don't know. Dad's company is legally mine now. And all three of them work there. HR called them in today. And I'm finally ready to tell you why. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, raised mostly by my dad. My mom passed away when I was 10, leaving behind a quiet house and a father who buried himself in work to survive the grief. When I was 16, he met Diane. Diane had 2 daughters, Brianna and Kelly, both loud, both restless, both raised on Diane's belief that money equals respect and respect equals obedience. I never had that belief. My mom taught me something different. People show you who they are when they think they hold power. I didn't understand that fully until years later. Back then, Dad adored Diane. He thought he was giving me a family again. I thought I was gaining sisters. Instead, I got captors disguised as siblings, and a stepmother who loved control more than love. If you're still listening, thank you. And if you've ever felt outnumbered in your own home, hit like so this story reaches someone who needs it. I didn't notice the insults at first. They came in soft ways. Like Brianna accidentally donating a sweater I left in the laundry room. Or Kelly telling me, with a bright teenage smile, "You'd be so pretty if you dressed your age." Diane always played referee, but only in appearance. She'd say, "Girls, be nice." But then smirk at me when their backs were turned. My dad? He missed all of it, buried in budgets and flights and meetings. When I left for college in Atlanta, I thought distance would fix everything. It didn't. If anything, it made their resentment louder. They acted like I abandoned the family. As if my own life shouldn't exist unless it revolved around theirs. But I kept my head down. I studied. I worked part-time. And I never asked Dad for money, not once, because every time I did when I was younger, the girls acted like I owed them something afterward. I built my independence quietly. What I didn't know was that my father was building something too. Something meant for me alone. But that comes later. For now, the only thing you need to know is this. My stepfamily didn't hate what I wore. They hated that I wasn't like them. And therefore, in their eyes, beneath them. One night during sophomore year, I came home for Thanksgiving, and Kelly leaned in at the dinner table, her voice soft and sharp. "Did you get dressed in the dark?" It wasn't the insult that stung. It was seeing Diane's proud smile behind her. I should have known then that they were warming up for something bigger. It happened on a Sunday night in early spring. I had come home for the weekend to help my dad sort through paperwork. He'd been tired lately, moving slower, rubbing his chest when he thought no one saw. Diane didn't help him. She helped herself, to his wallet, to his time, to the image of being the perfect corporate wife. That night, after Dad went to bed, I went to my room to pack up the clothes I brought. But when I opened the door, they were already there. Diane sat on my bed, legs crossed, twirling one of my scarves like she owned it. Her daughters stood by my open closet, hands full of my clothes. "Family meeting," Brianna said. Before I could respond, Kelly grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. The door slammed behind me. Diane rose slowly and walked toward me, her smile too calm. Then she held my arms firm, cold, deliberate. And I heard it. RRRRIIP. They were tearing everything. Dresses I saved for. Work clothes I bought with my own paycheck. A blazer my mom gave me before she died. I felt Diane's breath beside my ear. Honestly, Amanda, you dress like trash anyway. Her daughters laughed. Tore more. Destroyed more. And I stood there, silent, not weak, not frozen. But calculating. Because something in me snapped into place. A truth. A realization. A future. But I'll tell you about that part in the next section. And before we move on, comment if you've ever felt this kind of betrayal. I want to know I'm not alone in this. What they forgot was who the company actually belonged to. Most people think silence means defeat. But that night, when I didn't scream or cry or grab at the clothes being torn apart, I saw something flicker across Diane's face. Uncertainty. Because I wasn't the same girl they used to push around. College forces you to grow, quietly, steadily, privately. I stepped back from her grip. Not rough, not dramatic, just enough to show I didn't need permission to move. What? Kelly scoffed. No comeback? No lecture? No diary moment? I didn't answer. I simply reached down, picked up a ruined blouse, folded it, and set it aside with care. It shook them more than if I had yelled. Diane's smile cracked. She hated losing control. Your dad lets you live here out of pity, she snapped. Don't think for 1 second you have any real place in this family. She meant it to sting. But it didn't. Because she had no idea. That dad and I had a conversation she wasn't part of. One she never thought to ask about. A conversation that changed my future. And would soon change hers. I left the room that night without a word, and straight into the truth my father had been waiting to share. Dad was sitting at the dining table, paperwork spread around him. He looked up when I walked in and immediately saw the tension in my shoulders. Amanda? You okay? I wanted to tell him everything. But something stopped me. Not fear. Not shame. Just clarity. Diane had been draining him for years, emotionally, financially, socially, yet he still tried to keep our family stitched together. He didn't need more stress. Not with the way his hands trembled sometimes. So instead of reporting the attack upstairs, I sat across from him and helped with the documents. Hours passed. Then Dad sighed, leaned back, and said, I should tell you something before things change too much. My heart thudded. He slid a legal folder across the table. I updated the ownership papers last year, he said. The company goes to you, Amanda. Not Diane. Not her daughters. You. I stared at him. Not because I wanted the company. But because it was the first time in years I felt like someone had picked me. Not out of obligation. But out of trust. Why? I whispered. Dad rubbed his eyes. Because you're the only one who shows up. The only one who isn't using me. And you're the only one who has a vision beyond comfort. I swallowed hard, fighting the burn behind my eyes. He wasn't giving me a gift. He was giving me responsibility. And he knew I'd treat it with care. Diane thought marrying him secured her future. Her daughters thought proximity gave them power. But Dad knew better. That night became the hinge of my life. Before it, I was surviving. After it, I had purpose. And if this moment hits you as deeply as it hit me, tap like so this story reaches someone who needs to hear they matter. I went back to college the next morning, but everything felt different. Not because I owned a company now, but because the power shift finally settled into my bones. For years, Diane trained me to shrink. To apologize for things I didn't break. To excuse insults she disguised as jokes. No more. My turning point wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was a whisper in my own head as I packed my suitcase. I'm done playing the harmless daughter they can bully. I started taking business law classes. I shadowed financial advisors. I joined student networking groups. I learned what ownership really meant. I didn't run from what Dad entrusted to me. I prepared for it. And slowly, quietly, methodically, a plan formed. A plan built on paperwork, not revenge. On policy, not anger. On truth, not chaos. Diane and her daughters wanted me weak. Instead, I grew teeth. And if you've ever had that moment, where you stop pleading and start acting, comment I get it so I know you've felt it too. I didn't have to punish them. Their own behavior would do it for me. The company, Wallace Tech Solutions, sat in a downtown glass building in Charlotte. Diane and her daughters all worked there, thanks to Dad bending rules he shouldn't have. Diane was the corporate relations coordinator, which really meant she hosted events and took credit for other people's work. Brianna worked in marketing, flirting her way into campaign approvals. Kelly worked in HR, which was ironic considering she had never respected a single boundary in her life. For months, I said nothing. I kept up appearances, attended family dinners, smiled through their comments. But behind the scenes, I was building connections with Dad's executive team. I listened more than I spoke. I watched office dynamics like a hawk. And then I reviewed every policy, every complaint, every evaluation report. Slowly, patterns appeared. Diane had mismanaged funds. Brianna had mishandled client relations. Kelly had ignored multiple employee complaints, including ones about her own behavior. My revenge wasn't going to be petty. It would be administrative. Procedural. Unavoidable. So when Dad officially transferred operational advisor status to me, I submitted a request for a departmental review. Not of them specifically. Of every employee with misconduct reports. They just happened to fall into that category. And they would have to sit across from HR. Not as insiders, but as subjects. And the best part? I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't sabotage them. I didn't frame anyone. I simply let the truth do the speaking. But the day HR called them in, Diane finally realized something was wrong. It happened on a Thursday morning. I walked into the building wearing a simple cream blazer. The same color as the blouse they had ripped months ago. Employees nodded at me. Some smiled. I had earned their respect quietly. Diane saw me from across the lobby. She froze. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. And her face drained of color. Brianna and Kelly arrived seconds later. Their phones lighting up too. Brianna frowned. What does this mean? Please report to HR conference room B immediately. Kelly blinked, confused. Wait, Mom, why did we all get called in? No one had called them into HR before. They were always the accusers, never the accused. Diane walked toward me slowly, her heels tapping like warning shots. "What did you do?" she hissed. I didn't break eye contact. "I followed protocol," I said softly. "Nothing more." She scoffed. "You don't have that authority." "Oh," I said gently, "I think you'll find I do." She looked at me like she was finally seeing me for the first time. Not the quiet girl she could hold by the arms. Not the stepdaughter she could belittle in her own home. But the woman who now controlled the future she assumed belonged to her. HR opened the conference room door. "Ms. Wallace?" "We're ready." I stepped aside and motioned for them to go in first. Their jaws tightened. Their eyes darted. Their confidence wavered. They walked in. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. And if you've been waiting for this moment as much as I had lived it, tap like so more people hear stories were just as plays out cleanly. When I stepped into the HR conference room, the energy was tight, almost brittle. Diane sat stiffly at the table, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Brianna tapped her heel against the floor, her usual confidence leaking out with each nervous tap. Kelly looked pale, clutching her phone like it would save her. HR Director Michael Hayes greeted me. "Ms. Wallace, thank you for attending as the reporting advisor." Reporting advisor. A title Diane didn't realize I had. Her eyes darted between us. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "Why would Amanda be included in an HR meeting about us?" Michael calmly flipped open a folder. "Because Ms. Wallace," he nodded toward me, "flagged a review of employee conduct patterns. Your names were included due to documented complaints and policy concerns." Brianna shot forward. "Complaints? From who?" "I do my job better than half this staff." Michael slid documents across the table. A client complaint. A late campaign submission. A misallocated expense charge. Brianna's mouth dropped open. "That isn't, I didn't." But she couldn't finish the sentence, because every report had dates. Signatures. Proof. Then came Kelly's turn. HR handed over reports of ignored complaints. Incidents filed by employees she was supposed to protect. One was from an intern she brushed off. Another from a coworker she mocked in a group chat. Kelly whispered, "This is out of context." But there was no context that saved her. Finally, Diane. Her folder was thick. Misuse of event funds. Inappropriate delegation. Failure to submit required vendor documentation. A reprimand she forgot to tell my father about. Diane's jaw tightened until her face flushed red. "These are exaggerations," she said. "Everyone does this." "No," Michael replied calmly. "Not everyone does." Then he turned to me. "Ms. Wallace, do you have anything to add?" I inhaled. Exhaled. Kept my voice steady. "No. The documents speak for themselves." And they did. Diane glared at me with a hatred she had probably saved for years. But hatred couldn't erase files. Couldn't erase policy. Couldn't erase the fact that she taught her daughters to act untouchable. And now they were being held accountable. Michael closed the folders. "We will be conducting a full departmental restructuring. Effective immediately, all 3 of you are placed on administrative leave pending formal review." The room fell silent. Diane's voice cracked first. "You can't do this." My husband. I leaned forward, my tone soft but clear. This isn't about Dad. This is about your choices. And the company has policies to protect employees from behavior like yours. Her face went cold. You did this. I didn't blink. You did this. For once, she had no comeback. And if this moment feels as cathartic to you as it was for me, tap like so it reaches someone who needs to see that quiet justice works. That night, I returned home to pack the last of my things from the room where they had cornered me. The shredded clothes were gone. But the memory wasn't. Still, it didn't hurt the same way. Because I stood there knowing something they never believed I'd have. Power rooted in truth. Not fear. Not manipulation. Dad sat in the living room, waiting for me. How did it go? He asked. I sat beside him. It went how it needed to go. He studied my face for a moment. You're stronger than they ever understood. His words settled into my chest like warmth. I could have told him what they did to my clothes. I could have shown him the damage, the cruelty. But what for? He already had so much weight on his shoulders. Instead, I said quietly, they won't hurt the company anymore. Dad nodded. I trust you, Amanda. More than anyone. Diane and her daughters didn't come home until late. Doors slammed. Voices whispered harshly. Someone cried, maybe Brianna, maybe Kelly. But I didn't listen closely enough to know. I wasn't part of their chaos anymore. I had outgrown it. And early the next morning, I left with my suitcase. The same one I carried through college. And moved into my new apartment downtown, closer to the company I now shaped. It wasn't escape. It was arrival. Over the next few weeks, HR completed their review. The results? Diane, terminated for financial misconduct and negligence. Brianna, demoted due to client complaints and probationary performance. Kelly, transferred out of HR entirely and put under supervision. None of it surprised me. In fact, the only thing that surprised me was that they seemed shocked by consequences. Diane tried to blame Dad. Tried to blame the company. Tried to blame me. She even tried to call a board member to complain. But Dad shut it down with one sentence. My daughter is acting within policy. If you have a problem with that, you can take it up with legal. That was the moment Diane realized her influence was gone. Not because I stole it. Because she never earned it. Dad later filed for separation, quietly, respectfully. Not out of revenge, but out of necessity. I need peace in the years I have left, he said. I hugged him a little longer that day. Sometimes justice loosens chains you didn't realize you were wearing. If you've stayed with me through this whole story, thank you. You've walked beside me through hurt, growth, power, and ending. Here's the truth I hold now. People don't destroy you when they tear your clothes. People destroy themselves when they reveal who they really are. Diane thought I was weak because I stayed quiet. But silence isn't surrender. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes quiet is the storm you don't see until it's already overhead. Her daughters thought mocking me made them powerful. But real power doesn't come from cruelty. It comes from responsibility. Accountability. Integrity. I didn't take revenge on them. I didn't need to. I just let their actions meet consequences. And that's something they never prepared for. To anyone listening who has been belittled, underestimated, or cornered, You don't need to scream to be powerful. You don't need to fight dirty to win. You don't need to become what they are to rise above them. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply stepping into the strength they never wanted you to find. So here's my takeaway. Power built on cruelty collapses. Power built on truth endures. If you're going through something similar, hold on. Document everything. Build your foundation. Let their actions reveal their character. And trust that your quiet, patient strength is enough. And if this story resonated with you, or made you feel seen in any way, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me where you're watching from. Because somewhere out there is someone who needs to hear that they're not alone. And your comment might be the thing that reaches them. Thank you for listening. Really. Amanda.